Good morning and welcome to the video for Friday, January the 8th. This is going to be a video for third grade working through lesson 7.3 in Go Math. So today we're working with dividing by fives. Honestly, I think this is probably going to be a pretty easy lesson. So we'll talk through some strategies real quick, but this probably will not be like a full 20-minute video. So I think most of you can probably get the idea pretty quickly and jump ahead. I'm going to make sure everything's working here. I had this actually freeze up on me earlier. Yep, speaking of which, all right, so let's open this back up. My whiteboard's been having the gremlins today, so all right, here we go. Let's scoot over here and we'll go ahead and keep going. All right, so we are counting by five. So one of the strategies that we can use to find the answer to a division problem is to count up by the divisor. And so when we do that, we're using our multiplication facts, and we're going to get an answer that's going to be the number of times that we can count by five. In our unlock the problem, we're working to get up to 35 cents, saying that we are this person is saving a nickel every day, which is worth 5 cents. And we want to find out how many days she would have to save that to get up to 35 cents. So starting out, our first day she saves 5 cents, second day she saves 5 cents, and that takes us up to 10. So we're going to keep skip counting by fives. That's going to give us 15, then 20, then 25, then 30, then 35. And so she would have been saving for 7 days to do that. We can do the same thing with the number line. So using the exact same problem, we would skip backwards. So here's our first skip, then our second, our third, our fourth, which it looks like I missed a little bit. I'll have to fix that on the next one. Fifth, sixth, and seventh. And so we would jump back by 5 7 times. And so that would give us the answer 35 divided by 5 is equal to 7. So let's go to our next page. We could just go ahead and talk about how we can go ahead and use our multiplication facts for tens to divide, cut it in half. I honestly don't think we need to do that, especially not at this point. We're not working with large enough numbers. So keep in mind that that's something that we can do. We can relate our math facts for fives and tens. We can double our math facts for fives to find the answers for tens, although we're usually used to counting by tens. And we can do the opposite. We can do the same thing. If you were really comfortable with working with your multiplication facts for eights, but not so comfortable working on the ones for fours, then you could take your multiplication facts for eights, cut those in half, and that would give you the numbers that we would use with fours. But usually we're worried about doing the opposite of that and trying to get to the larger number instead of trying to work back to a smaller number. So let's go ahead and look. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do 1 through 3. You can pause the video if you need to. You don't need to use the number line, but I'm going to show using that on the example. So pause the video if you need to while you go ahead and work through that. And then when you're ready, go ahead and hit play. So assuming that you did that, I'm going to go ahead. We've got the first skip here drawn. We need to go all the way back to 0. So I'm going to skip again by fives and then skip a third time. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3 times. I'm not going to label each individual one just to save time. And honestly, we probably don't need it as much as if we were doing something slightly different. If we were skipping on the number line and we're combining, doing multiplication and addition and some other things, and we're having to work with different numbers, it's more beneficial to do that. If we're working with the same number the whole time, you may not need it. So 10 divided by 2, we're going to start at 10. We are going to skip backward by 2's this time. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's going to give us the answer 5. So we may have 5 as the answer, or we're going to be using it as our divisor. So in this case, we're using it as our divisor. 20, goes back to 15, goes back to 10, excuse me, I missed, goes back to 5, and goes back to 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times that we would count by 5s to get to 20. Let's go ahead and actually skip ahead to the next page. We're going to do some more practice here. I'm going to skip both of these, but because we're working with relatively simple math facts, at least in my opinion, we can go ahead and jump to this next part. So what I want to do is have you go ahead and we'll do the odd ones here. So let's do 9, 11. We might get something different than 5 for that one. 14, 16, 18, and 20. So we may be reviewing some of the other stuff that we're doing. So let's do the evens through that section. Go ahead and pause the video if you need to, and then we'll talk about, we'll be doing both of these so that we can find our patterns to talk about. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit play. All right, so assuming that you did that, we're going to start with number 10. So what I would ask you is, how many times can we count by 5 to get to 40? Another way that I might ask that is, how many times does 5 go into 40? Either of those would be kind of the same question, but using slightly different words. So if I were to count by 5s, I can go ahead and find my answer. That would give me 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So I can count 8 times by 5. That's going to give me a quotient of 8. For number 12, we are starting with nothing. So if I take nothing and break it up into 5 groups, I am still going to have nothing in each group. So that would give us 0, kind of a reminder of something that we haven't done for a while. Number 14, we are doing 10 divided by 5. So how many times does 5 go into 10? Or how many times can I count by 5 to get to 10? That would be twice. So we would go 5 and then 10. And while you're working on this, if you're not as comfortable with memorizing everything and being able to quickly recall, it's perfectly fine to do what I just did. So like, I would much rather you actually do this and actually keep track of it in your head so that you know where you're at. And then once you get more comfortable with it, you can just, all right, so I did that twice without using the extra steps to keep track of making sure you get to the right answer in the right way. Number 16, we're doing 4 divided by 2. So 2 goes into 4 2 times. So 2, and then the second group of 2 would give us 4. Number 18, 16 divided by 2 is going to be 8. So if I did the same thing that I did before, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. So 8 times 2 gives me 16. And again, once we start working with long division, our next step would actually be to do the number on top times 2, and then we would figure out if we have anything left over. In this case, we will not. And number 20, how many times does 5 go into 15? That would be 5, 10, 15, so 3 times. All right, let's talk through our patterns here. We are going to complete the table. So we are starting with multiplication on the left-hand problem. So number 21 is going to be multiplication. Number 22, we're going to be doing division. And we're going to see how these might relate to each other. So let's go ahead and start with the multiplication part. Go ahead and fill this in. We're doing 10 times 1, and the answer goes here, 10 times 2. So we're basically counting by 10s on the top row, counting by 5s on the bottom row. So go ahead and do that. Pause the video if you need to. And here are the answers. So we're going to go 10 times 1 equals 10, 10 times 2 equals 20, 10 times 3 equals 30, 10 times 4 equals 40, and 10 times 5 equals 50. 5 times 1 gives us 5, then 10, 15, 20, and 25. So as we go to this side, we might find a similarity between our top section here and what we have going on here. But we're going to be looking at something slightly different for the pattern. So in this case, our number was twice as large as the bottom number to start with. Now let's do our division part. So 10 divided by 10 is going to be 1. The second one, 20 divided by 10, we're going to count by tens 2 times. To get to 30, we would count by tens 3 times. To count by tens, we would get to get to 40, we would do that 4 times. And then the last one would be 5 times. So think about how many times we're going to count by 5 to get to 10. And then we're going to be figuring that out for all 5 of these. So pause the video if you need to. There is a pattern with this, but it's not going to be quite the same as what we had before. Okay? So there are 2 groups of 5 to get to 10, 4 to get to 20, 6 to get to 30, 8 to get to 40, and 10 to get to 50. So we're kind of going up by ones here, just like we're kind of going up by ones here, except we're counting by tens when we're doing that. This time we're kind of counting up by twos. So we're kind of doubling here, but not exactly. And then there's a relationship with that kind of matches here. We're kind of doubling as we go here, and then we would add another group of 5. So in this case, on the left-hand side, our bottom number is going to be half of the top number. On this side, because we are dividing by a smaller number, our answer is actually going to be twice as large as the numbers that we get on top. Okay, so when we're multiplying, the bigger the number that we're multiplying by, the larger our answer is going to be. When we're dividing, the smaller the number that we're dividing by, the more times we can count by that number. So our answer is going to be larger on the bottom row than the top for that one. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and skip these in favor of going ahead and talking through the homework real quick. So I'm going to ask you to do all of the even problems on the front. So that will include at least one of the word problems, and then we're going to do everything on the back. So I would like you to do number 2. I'm going to kind of put little marks next to these. So we're going to do number 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. For most of these, you should just be able to count by 5s. On number 12, we would have to count by 10s. So keep that in mind. This is the only one that you're going to need to use a number line for unless you choose to make one to help you find the answer. Number 16, we are looking at a doll maker puts a small bag with 5 hair ribbons inside each box with a doll. How many bags of 5 ribbons can we make if we start with 45 ribbons? So we can count by 5s to get here, and that would give us our answer. On the back, we are looking for if we do groups of 5 boxcars, how many of those groups of 5 can we make if we start with 35 boxcars? Number 2, we're making 5 buttons at a time, and each shirt gets 5 buttons. If we only have 5 buttons, how many doll shirts can we finish? So how many how many shirts can we make with the 5 buttons that we already have, is what that's asking for. And then this is kind of a review. So we're doing $5 each day for 6 days. So that should hopefully help you figure out what kind of problem we're doing. We are starting with 12 slices of bread, and we are breaking them up into groups of 2 as we make sandwiches. So we want to know how many of those sandwiches or groups of 2 can we make out of 12. Number 5, we are looking for how many students have no pets. We're using this to help us with that. So hopefully that should be pretty easy. And the students answered, how many students answered the question, how many pets do you have? So when we were talking about this before, there's an easy way to figure out how many people responded. We would assume that all of the answers have been given, so we can go ahead and do something relatively simple. I'll hopefully use that as a hint that doesn't give you the exact thing to do, but hopefully you remember how to do that. So pretty easy. We don't have to cover up a section or anything like that. We can just work with what's given. We don't have to find groups of things other than either one number's worth or possibly the entire amount. All right, so that's the for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in Google Classroom. Hope you have a great day, and I will see you on Monday.